Well, hello. Welcome back to another exciting edition of Coffee with Stephen. So, this week's blog is entitled New York versus the NRA, and I'm sure most of you are already familiar with this. The Attorney General of the state of New York, Miss James, decided to launch a civil lawsuit against the National Rifle Association. Now, it's minorly complex. The remedy that she's seeking is completely bizarre, okay? Effectively, the National Rifle Association has a registry as a charitable organization within the state of New York. Now, I do not have inside information as to whether or not the NRA has similar registries across the other 50 states, although I suspect they probably do. There's a lot of people that will make donations in their respective states, and in order to facilitate those donations, oftentimes charitable organizations will register as charitable organizations in these respective states. But it's usually a fairly small, somewhat hermetically sealed organization. It's not the NRA as a whole. Now, that being said, I'm not entirely familiar with the organizational structure of the NRA, so it is entirely conceivable that the NRA actually has their incorporation in the state of New York, although I would suspect that's not in fact the case. Regardless of that, Miss James seems to feel that the NRA has been engaged in inappropriate behavior. And pursuant to her investigative powers, she launched a year-long investigation where she has called out both Wayne LaPierre, the executive director of the National Rifle Association, as well as certain board members of having essentially engaged in fraudulent activity. And you know what? It is entirely possible that this is totally accurate, okay? I haven't seen her information. There's been a lot of internal dynamics that have taken place at the NRA. We saw that last year at the convention when Colonel Oliver North effectively tried to launch a coup against the NRA and was subsequently ousted. And one of the things that he complained about was sort of a structural sort of aura of corruption that existed within the organization. Now, the victim in the NRA would theoretically be the individuals that have given donations to the organization. If the organization is in fact engaged in some sort of fraudulent activity, then the only people that would have been defrauded would have been the people who wrote checks or provided their credit card for the NRA to exist. So rather than saying, look, the NRA has engaged in these activities, therefore, for the benefit of the people in the state of New York that, want their money back, we're going to come up with some sort of remedial action so that they can be ensured that they are able to receive their money. Instead, the Attorney General James, who happens to be extraordinarily anti-gun, she's been very vocal about that, seems to think that the only remedy that would, protect these disenfranchised individuals that were defrauded out of their money would be to simply eliminate the NRA altogether. All right. This violates certain constitutional principles. And honestly, other than, gaining some political credibility among an already established base, I'm not entirely sure what benefit it actually draws to her. In fact, actually, it has the potential of backfiring fairly dramatically. First and foremost, this is an election year. We are going into a presidential election. There has not been a whole lot of discussion about the Second Amendment this year. There's a reason for that. We've had riots, we've had COVID-19, and we've got a boatload of new gun owners in the United States. Many of them from the other side of the political aisle. All right. So by going after this organization, what she is effectively doing is taking the Second Amendment and putting it front and center again. Now, the Republicans have more talking points. Look, here's an example. The Democrats really do want to go after your right to keep and bear arms, and they are even willing to try to destroy the oldest civil rights organization in the United States. Honestly, this was an unforced error on the part of the Democrats. The fact that she wasn't essentially curtailed for doing this until after the election completely blows me away. First and foremost, you've got to remember, this lawsuit is not going to end the NRA tomorrow. Quite candidly, it's probably going to be a 5 to 7 year form of litigation. So by announcing now, all she did was kind of shoot herself in the foot, no pun intended. Anyways, read the blog. You can find it at artemishq.com/blog. It will go on the website Wednesday morning. As always, I want you to train constantly, train consistently, train repetitively, and train with purpose. And above all else, stay safe.